I hope you're having a great day and welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show. We really are glad that you joined us here on 103.1, or maybe you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or your favorite podcast. We're thrilled to have you as we celebrate the men and women who are working so hard to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. You know, I often say on this show that it takes so many different people in so many different ways contributing to coastal Mississippi. So we'll talk to high-level community leaders that are leading on the regional level. We'll talk to people who are leading at the neighborhood level and all points in between. One of the things that I enjoy doing is talking to people who work in tourism and across the hospitality sector, what they're doing to continue to create success for coastal Mississippi. You know, I really can't overstate that. It's so important what they're doing. And, you know, one that I really have enjoyed staying in touch with really since the advent of Coast View and now the Ricky Matthews Show is my friend, the really wonderful chef from White Pillars, Austin Sumrall. And you may have seen his name in the headlines recently. I'll share some of that with you here shortly. But before we go any further, let me welcome my friend Austin back to the Ricky Matthews Show. How you doing, my friend?
Fantastic. Thank you, Ricky, for having me.
It's good to see you. So where are you sitting right now, my friend?
We're in the front dining room here at the restaurant.
Well, look, we're actually gonna take a step back here in just a second and remind people where you come from and all of that. Sure. This is not your first award. You've had some success when you've gone out there in the competitive chef world, but more recently, the headline from SuperTalk Mississippi News says this: Biloxi chef wins $15,000, grand title on the Food Network's Alex versus America. Well, first of all, let me say congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So what has it been like? You know, I'm sure that you've been in the media, it's more than 15 minutes of fame, but it's cool to have your own place and have a little bit of notoriety. It helps your restaurant. It brings focus to your restaurant, and that's good for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think probably the hardest part about all this is that we filmed that back in October, and I haven't been able to talk about it until just now. So it's been nice that it finally aired, and we can discuss it and put it on our socials and all that kind of stuff. So it's really exciing.
So you had a lot of time to think about
Yeah,
how are people going to react to you winning? Hey, listen, for people who haven't seen the Food Network's Alex versus America, tell them about it. Tell them about the program, and I've come to understand it's pretty popular. And
sure.
You know, again, you taped it in October. That's a long time to wait. But tell us about the program.
So it's a Food Network show. It's a spinoff from Iron Chef. Alex Warren Shelley, it's her own show. She is an Iron Chef. And essentially what she does is she invites 3 chefs from a specific type of cuisine. Like our show was Southern. And she challenges those chefs. And you compete against her and the other chefs. So you have 2 rounds of cooking. And there are parts of it that are kind of similar to Chopped. There's not like a secret ingredient, but there are different elements that you have to go through. You don't know what you're going to make ahead of time. Essentially, you have different, like on mine, there was different styles of cuisine that we had to do, and you had some choices you had to make through each round, and then the last place from the first round goes home. And then whoever wins the first round gets to choose all of the variables for the second round. So on my episode, I actually got 3rd out of 4th in the first round. So I didn't plate it how they wanted me to. It was supposed to be picnic. The other choice was fine dining. And so my plate was a little too fancy. And I almost went home on the first round. Alex won the first round and got to choose all the variables on the second one. So kind of had the cards stacked against me, but obviously it ended up well.
Well, you it's interesting because the general public is more aware of the roles that chefs play, the creativity, the innovation, the role of the sous chef, then, you know, that's not something that the average person knew much about. You know, how you organize the kitchen, the teamwork approach to it, and so on and so on, because of all these different TV programs that are focused on chefs today. That creates like mass awareness where there used to not be awareness. That helps you, doesn't it?
I think so, you know, and a lot of chefs may disagree with me on this. Obviously, it's you know, it's worked out well for me. But, you know, Food Network and everything like that kind of gives you a glimpse into, you know, the lives of real chefs. You know, the people that we're competing on there are, you know, that's what they do. That's what they do for a living. They're chefs. And even Alex, you know, when it all boils down, she's a chef, a very good one. And the hard part about this particular show is that her specialty is competition. You know, she's been on Iron Chef. She's a judge on Chopped. And then she has her own show. And all of those are about, you know, the competition aspect of cooking something on the fly, something that you don't know you're going to be doing ahead of time. And she's really, really good. And she does not lose very often. So it was, I knew it was an uphill battle. I'd watched a lot of the episodes going into the competition, and you know, it was an honor just to be there, and I would do it just for that, and because I enjoy the competition part. But being able to actually come home with the win was it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we'll remind folks here shortly about where you come from, but when you go back and look at your family influence and this whole notion of understanding how to keep it fresh and the innovation that you brought to the table through a lot of trial and tribulations over many years, you're kind of like a chef. I guess generally chefs, to be successful, need to be human sponges. I mean, you've got to be able to soak it up.
Sure.
But when you go through an experience like this, I bet it is incredible what you learn, ways that you can maybe do things slightly different, and it changes you as a chef, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, you know, people's trajectory, you know, kind of forms who they end up being as a chef. And, you know, it's the people that you work for beforehand. And then, you know, the things that you learn on opening a restaurant, you know, do's and don'ts, I think are all really important. And, you know, you try to pick up as much as you can here and there and learn from people and get inspired by people and chefs and food and cuisine, because that's what it really gets down to. You know, at least for me, and I would think for most chefs, it's a love of food and cuisine that really stems, you know, that all stems from.
Hey, Austin, tell me about what it's like to cook with the cameras on and all these people watching, and you know, there some of the people watching are extraordinarily gifted, you know, chefs, and they understand the process. How does that pressure feel? Talk to me about that.
Well, you know, I'm not one that gets very nervous. I think that being in the restaurant industry kind of prepares you a little bit for that, because you're putting yourself on the line every day. You know, when you're creating food and when you're cooking for people, at least and on a high end, people, you know, they're spending their good money for it, and they're going to judge what you put out for them. And you know, it's tough, because you know that may be something that's really special to you, or a family recipe, and people's tastes are all different and they may not like it, and you kind of get used to that and to that kind of pressure. And I think that you know, is amplified on these shows, because you're going to put your food up to real judges and people that have made a name for themselves as chefs. And then they're going to talk about it in front of millions of people. And, so it's you know, similar, but also obviously different. But yeah, I think that kind of gets you ready for it and everything like that. The crazy thing is the amount of people that are working shows. I feel like that's probably what people don't realize, because you don't see all that. But there are hundreds of people working on these shows while they're filming. You've got, 15 or 20 cameras. You've got all these different producers and, somebody that's in charge of all of the food that's available to cook and everything like that. And somebody that knows all of the equipment to be able to explain to you how it works and that kind of thing. And then there's the hosts and judges and other competitors and everything like that too. So really cool. I got to meet a ton of awesome people. Alex was really, really nice.
Hey, let's pick it. We'll pick it. We're at the end of this segment, so we'll pick it up right there on the other side about Alex. But we're talking with my friend Chef Austin Sumrall from White Pillars, who recently won a wonderful competition on the Food Network, and we'll talk more about that when we get back after this break. We'll see you shortly. Welcome back to my show. I have Austin Sumrall, chef, the chef and owner, with his wife Tress of White Pillars in Biloxi. Recently won a wonderful competition on the Food Network's Alex versus America. Hey, side note, we'll pick up where we left off here in just a second, but a side note, the audience knows I spend a lot of time working out and riding the bike, and not long ago, actually, I was riding the bike by a gym, and there was my friend Austin going in to pay homage to his workout schedule. But you always wonder about it. A chef, and as much exposure you have to eating, you have to really pay attention to staying in shape, don't you?
You do, and it's something that I have to work on personally. It's hard being around a bunch of really good food, not just wanting to eat all the time. And also, I'm passionate about it. We like to eat out and go try other people's stuff too. So long days on your feet for a long time. You gotta try to make sure you're paying attention to your body a little bit too. Plus they say the camera adds 15 pounds. So, I'm trying to get on more shows. So,
hey, you were saying that before I went to break that one of the benefits of doing the show. First of all, you mentioned there was so many people engaged in the show, and most of these national shows are like that. It's just the production quality. They don't leave a stone unturned in terms of putting it together. It's cost a lot of money to do a production like this, and they don't leave anything to chance. But you said one of the benefits, what you were about to say, is getting to know Alex better. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so on this show, between rounds and once the timer stopped and before and everything when we weren't filming, she's a real person. She spoke to us like peers, and we kind of got to know her a little bit, and she was very funny and just like a real chef. And so I thought that was a cool part of the show, is getting to know the talent a little bit. And then Eric is the host of the show. He doesn't compete, but hosts it, and he's a super nice guy too. And he's done Top Chef and some other stuff like that. And we got to talk to him a little bit about how he felt competing versus watching people compete and all that kind of stuff too. So that was an interesting angle and very entertaining to hear what they really thought about all that. And to see, how you get to that level of success also, which is obviously super high.
Yeah. Hey, listen, Austin, I want to deal with kind of hover on one thing here for a second. And it is this point about what did it feel like to be in front of the camera? And what I heard in your answer was that you were prepared, that you spent a lot of time in the trenches. To be a good chef, you have to be willing to make some mistakes along the way. You got to develop thicker skin. You have to develop a taste for what people want. You have to be willing to listen to people and get the feedback. And the point that I'm making is that by the time you get on a show like that, you have spent a lot of time in the trenches. And what you develop is an ability to sort of have some confidence. You have confidence in what you're bringing to the table, and when you have that, and that's what success is all about. It's about doing the time, not skipping any steps, developing yourself, and preparing yourself for a situation like this. You do it every day at the restaurant. So what you did on the show is what you do at the restaurant. There's really a connection between those two things, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I think it's confidence. It's I cook all day, every day. This is just another, time to cook. And, that's what it is. You kind of just let your instincts kick in and everything like that. I think over nerves, it's the hard part's probably the adrenaline, which I still get every day in the restaurant when we start service. So, you're used to that a little bit, but it's definitely amplified. And, once the lights are on and the cameras are rolling, it's a pretty crazy feeling. And so this is not the first show that I've done. I did Chopped as well. And I actually did Chopped before I did Alex versus America, and it hasn't come out yet. But she was one of my judges on there. And so I had, done the timed on the camera cooking before. But the very first round of Chopped, when I first started, that was when I realized that you got to take a couple deep breaths and focus, because your mind is running really fast, and you got to settle down and get back to what you know how to do. So I think that helped me a little bit, having already done one, to kind of have an idea that it was going to take just a second, focus, and to execute.
Hey, what's interesting, you also won the King of American Seafood Award during the Great American Seafood Cook-Off back in 2021, and we actually did a show about that. But it's interesting. I think it's great though, and and a lot of successful people say this, and that is that you should never lose the adrenaline to do what you're doing. The love of what you're doing, this striving for excellence, and knowing that you never really arrive. It can never become sort of routine, because the moment it becomes a routine and you think you've arrived is the day you start to go backwards. I mean, there is to be a chef, to be really successful in life, actually, you have to realize that life is a journey. It's a constant effort to change and apply and meet the needs of your customers. And you feel that every day, don't you?
Sure. Yeah. I think the biggest enemy for chefs is complacency. And I worked for a guy named Chris Hastings in Birmingham for a long time, and he used to say that a lot. And that it's super true. As soon as you think this is good enough, you start going back down. So it's almost sad in a way, because you strive for perfection that you'll never reach, but that's part of it. If you're not pushing yourself, if you're not pushing your team, if your team's not willing to push themselves, then you end up with a product that's just not quite as good. But I'm very lucky. We hire people here at White Pillars with the thought in mind, that they want to better themselves as chefs. And to me, experience is really takes a backseat to somebody that's got a passion for it. And we can teach them what they need to know. And but I've got a really good team of people that they want each plate to be better than the next. And when they do make mistakes, which everyone does, I make mistakes, they make mistakes, we're all human. I have to remind them that, hey guys, we'll just use this as a learning experience. We'll get better, and we'll make the next one even twice as good, or whatever it's got to be. But it's easy to get down on yourself too, and that's it's important. We try to keep that positive attitude that we're making something that people really like, and we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep trying to make each one better than the last.
Yeah, what's interesting? It just goes under the caption, as I said a minute ago, that you never arrive. There's really not a destination. The destination really is the journey. It's the joy of the journey, and discovering more opportunity and being more innovative, and that's the key. And your point really there. I mentioned this the other day on my show, that there's a great book out called Built to Last. And what it talks about is that the companies that have only a single charismatic leader and they follow the leader. If the leader were to ever go away, then they kind of lose their rudder and they don't know where to go. But the companies that built into their core values, some really solid core values, and the point you made a few minutes ago, hiring people that have the right attitude, that have a willingness to want to learn, that are smart. And somebody said this to me early in my career, and I never forgot it, and I said it all the time after that, okay, so here's the deal. I got a guy who's extraordinarily well-trained. I mean, buddy, he passes all the tests. He is a whiz, amazing guy, but his attitude's a little bit off. And right. I got another guy over here who is not well-trained, but he has an incredible attitude, a willingness to learn, and a real go-getter. So some people, the way it works is they tend to go toward the well-trained guy because they need that person right now. But see, a year from now, you're going to have two well-trained people. One of them is going to have a so-so attitude. The other one's going to be a barn burner. Which do you want? I want the barn burner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an investment in people, and the one thing that you hope is that you put all that effort into sculpting this great chef, and then they leave and go chef for somebody else, which is a thing, but it's,
you know what though, so here's Zig Ziglar once said that if you help people get what they want out of life, you'll get what you want out of life. So the reality is, helping people reach their goals, it can be so painful because it means they may leave.
Right.
But if you get a reputation for growing people, you'll attract more like them, and that's actually a really good thing. Hey, when we come back, we'll talk more about where Chef Austin Sumrall came from. We'll remind you a little bit about his past. We'll see you after that. Welcome back to my show. Listen, I said this the first time that Austin Sumrall is the chef and owner with his wife Tress of White Pillars in Biloxi, that when I was in high school, I washed dishes for a period of time at White Pillars, and then I bussed tables after that. And it was a great experience for me, learning how a first-class restaurant, even back in those days, how they operate and how they take care of their employees and all of that. And then, of course, we all know the rest of the story. It sat idle for a period of time. And Tress and Austin had an opportunity to start this restaurant. Tremendous investment was made in that building to bring it back. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the unique aspects of that building. But you opened it and didn't look back. And it's been really well. So what I would say, I want to go back to your time in Macomb and growing up. But before we go there, if you had to describe your restaurant to someone who's not heard of White Pillars before, how do you describe it?
Well, it's pretty tough to describe. That's something that we've struggled with over the past 5.5 years because there's a lot of nuance to it. But our elevator pitch is it's farm to table cuisine. Local seasonal vegetables and proteins in a remodeled neoclassical mansion on the beach.
Yeah, that's the way to say it. That's the way to say it. And let's go back. Let's go back to your time in Macomb.
Sure.
You grew up hunting and fishing and sort of appreciating life on a ranch, life in the woods. You had this kind of heritage of cooking you learned it from your mother and your grandmother in your pastime. But that was, at the time you probably didn't fully appreciate it, but that was a really, really important part of who you are, isn't it?
Sure, absolutely. I think in the core of it, I get asked that question a pretty good bit, like how do you get into this? I think what it really goes back to is that in my family when I was growing up, so my mom's side of my family is from South Louisiana, and my dad's side of my family is from Jackson, and but on both sides, food was more than just sustenance. It was it was a reason for the family to gather, and it was more of an event, it was really important, and it was about fellowship with your family and everything like that. But the food was also important. So we always laughed, if we were having lunch, we were talking about dinner. And if we were having dinner, we were talking about what we could do with these leftovers for breakfast. And it was just always, kind of a round and round we went. But it was, it was important to my family. And I think that that's kind of what instilled it into me. But yeah, I grew up in Macomb. We lived in town for the most part, but we had a farm. We raised beef cattle and pine trees on, and I spent a lot of my time out there hunting and fishing. It's on the Amite River, so we bass fishing there, and then we had cattle ponds that we would brim fish in, and then of course turkeys and deer and all that kind of stuff were very prevalent. So it was nice. It was a great way to grow up. I still like to go out there. My parents actually live out there now, so we like to go visit. And you get away from everything. Their house is a mile in any direction from a paved road, so it's pretty awesome. And it was just a great way to grow up. And my dad, who's a big listener too, so I'm sure he'll hear this. He always said, if we kill it, we're going to eat it. So nothing went to waste or anything like that. So, we ate all that stuff that we killed and that we caught and everything like that. So it was awesome. And, it gave me a leg up in my technical career in the industry too. Whenever I got to breaking down, whole hogs and lamb and even cows a couple times. I've done a lot of butchery, just with growing up on a farm that I knew more than most, and I actually got a job as a butcher at Hot and Hot for that reason. And one of my favorite jobs I've ever done. I still do all the butchery here at White Pillars, and I enjoy it. It's a kind of a art that a lot of people are losing, and it's cool and fun. Gives you an opportunity to do some really cool things with proteins that not many other people can.
Yeah, my show SuperTalk Outdoors. I celebrate the outdoors every Monday. Statewide show, goes across a bunch of radio stations, and I really enjoy doing that show. I really enjoy it, and it's a celebration of this sort of getting back to the outdoors and what it means to us. And by the way, I mean, obviously with deer hunting and from time to time, killing a wild hog,
sure.
We've gotten pretty good at we got a cleaning shed with a great table, and we prepare all our own meat, and it's a great experience, and we teach the kids how to do it, and it just it really brings home this point that you make, from the farm or from the garden to the table, and having real meaning to that.
Sure. Well, and I think that's part of the reason that I gravitated towards that. I mean, most of the restaurants that I've worked in coming up, and then of course White Pillars now, really cared about the farm to table aspect. And our point is that everyone should know where their food comes from. Everyone, not just farmers, everybody. You should read labels. You should eat locally. And it's not just for the reason that it's going to taste better, because, if a tomato is picked in, Mexico, and then you pick it green, they pump in gases on the truck to ripen it on the way to Walmart. And it just it's not going to taste as good, but it's also, it's worse for the environment. You've got all that long haul trucking to get it across America and all that kind of stuff. And, we have a little bit of a tendency as a society to want what we want. We want it now. But kind of getting back to that whole eating seasonally, eating locally, and all that kind of stuff. That's really where everybody should be heading. And added bonus, it tastes better when it's riper and when it's grown locally. But we take it one step further here at White Pillars. Is not just do we know where our food comes from, but we know who our food comes from. We have relationships with our farmers. We have relationships with our fishmongers, and it helps us as a restaurant to know, one, what's coming up what we're going to get soon. And I communicate, I know that heirloom tomatoes are about a week away, which is very exciting for me because tomatoes are something that's very important. But that's a relationship that we've built with our farmers, and we've been out to the oyster farms with Mike and Anita Arguelles, and I've pulled the oysters right out of the water. We know the process that they use. They can tell me what the salinity is like and how those oysters are going to taste before they ever even get here, and so it's a really cool thing. And it's something that we're very proud of, and it's also it's been very fulfilling. Those people have become friends of ours, and they support us here at the restaurant, and we in turn support them, and it's just this cool community of people that are making stuff that tastes really good.
Yeah, no, it really is. And what's interesting is that if you have a popular dish that requires some fresh component, and that fresh component is not available, you're not forcing it. You're just going to,
yeah. And that's something that, I'm kind of going back to my time at Hot and Hot. They're very famous for their tomato salad, like world famous for their tomato salad. And when I was the chef de cuisine there, I would go to the farmer's market with my pocket knife and open boxes of tomatoes and cut into them for weeks before it was time to bring on the tomato salad, because they had to be perfect. We would not serve them if they weren't ready, if they were mealy, if they were under-flavored, all that kind of stuff, which towards the beginning of tomato season, you get tomatoes that are like that, and then they start coming in where they're perfect, and then you finally can put it on, and then sometimes you'd have a cold snap, and then you have to take it back off again, and people get mad. But it's just not – the reason it's world famous is because you're only serving product that's perfect, and it's what makes it taste so good. So we kind of stick to that model, and when we have to take dishes off, and people may get upset, but you just have to tell them, look, it'll be back next season. You'll just have to wait, and you can get it then. But it also keeps me interested. It keeps our staff interested, because we change our menu all the time. We change it at least a few things every week, and something changes on there pretty much every day.
Man, I love the trend in oyster farming here in coastal Mississippi. In fact, I'll mention a little bit more about that on the other side. And then we'll remind folks that you actually wanted to be a mechanical engineer, and it was not a easy communication to tell your mother that you were going to go a different route. Hey, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Chef Austin Sumrall from the White Pillars. We'll see you after this. The role that chefs play in coastal Mississippi, so many incredible restaurants all over this amazing place. They're the ones who create kind of a sense of place. They all bring their angle to the conversation, and they create, wonderful, in some way, restaurant destinations that people come to, and they want to have an experience. It's not just about the food. Certainly the food's at the center, but it's an experience. And, White Pillars is among those. I always enjoy my conversation with Austin. You mentioned Mike Arguelles and his wife Anita, both friends. Mike actually built my pier, and they've been on the show a couple of times. But what Mike has done with French Hermit oysters, this aquaculture oyster farming operation that he's put together, and now through them I've gotten to know all these others and what they're doing. First of all, when you eat one of those oysters, if there's such thing as a perfect oyster, that's what I feel when I eat one of those. But Mike's got it down to a science, though, doesn't he, Austin?
Sure, he really does. And the whole idea of the off-bottom aquaculture of the oysters, to me, you just get so much more control over the way they turn out. That it's just, you just get this really cool product. And it's one of those things where it's really special. A lot of times, especially when it comes to seafood cultivating, the farmed product just is not as good as the wild. This is not one of those cases. It's better in like a lot of facets. One, a wild oyster takes 2 to 3 years to mature. These are 8 to 12 months. So you're cutting that time down, and then they don't hurt the environment where they're growing them. Even when you're farming a crop You have to do something to put nutrients back in that soil and things like that, and crop rotation and things. That's not the case with these oysters. They actually help the water that you put them in because they're a filter. And then you're not hurting or destroying anything while you're out there. And it's just really cool process. And you get these really delicious oysters. They do some cool stuff, like taking them out and tumbling them, and it helps create the shape of the shell. And it also, Mike and I laugh that it's like working your oysters out, because you're actually strengthening that muscle as they try to stay closed as they're tumbled in this machine, and it gives you a firmer, more plump oyster when you go to eat it, which is also really nice. And then the flavor just can't be matched. It's really cool product. Very, very blessed to have them. We will have they'll probably be here, I would think, in the next hour or so with oysters that are in the water currently. So
it's incredible how quick they get from the water to your restaurant. Listen, my wife Ann and I spent some time in Croatia, and one of the things that you see in Croatia a lot are the oyster farming in cages above the water. Lots. I mean, Croatia's known for their wine because of their grapes. They're known for their olive oil because of their olive trees, just like Italy, for example. And then their seafood. I mean, their fish, the way they cook their fish, incredible. And then, of course, their oysters, they're very proud of that. It's great to see us doing it. For people who missed my conversation with Mike and Anita Arguelles, you can go look it up on Facebook. But anyway, raising these cages that are floating, and it's just south of Deer Island. It's just a wonderful process. What's cool about what you just said was that you understand the process. You've been out there. You get it. You can talk about it to that level. And that same thing is true when you talk about tomatoes or any other raw material that might be coming from someone's garden and the relationship you have with them. And that makes it so complete, doesn't it?
It does. Well, and it's, and we do our best to try to communicate all of that stuff to our servers and everything too, because we feel like that they're the liaison between us and the guest. And to me, it's important for people to know. You may eat something and say, hey, this is really good, but if you know why it's really good, it makes it even more special. And to know some of the process and the hard work that people put into it. And I think that goes back to growing up on the farm. We kind of touched on that earlier. I saw firsthand and was a party to a lot of that getting up early and working really hard. And, that has to be, celebrated. And it's really important for us, for people to understand the hard work that goes into the food even before we get it. And then we do our
Yeah. Well, listen, I can tell you this. My wife and I, we got a gift from our kids for Christmas a year or two ago, and used it within the past year. Had dinner there, and the food was just incredible. We left there stuffed, but it was fresh, and it was just incredible. And any regrets of not going into mechanical engineering?
No, none at all. I can't imagine really doing anything else. As far as my professional career goes, once I was in college when I started in restaurants, but once I was out, I haven't done anything else. So I can't imagine doing it. It is something that I truly enjoy coming to work every day. And it's I still love it.
Yeah, I know you do. Listen, we're out of time. Austin, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Congratulations on your success, both at the restaurant and in your sort of national awareness, and more to come. Be interesting to see where this takes you. Have a good day, my friend.
Thank you for having me on.
You bet. Look forward to having you back. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
You too.